Hello and welcome to the very first edition of Brew Bomb's Ask the Experts, where ask stands for always seek knowledge. Today, we want you to be able to bolster your bottom line by participating in a video discussion about all things cold brew. Learn about how you can brew better, improve your formulation, dispensing, enhance your shelf stability, and grow your cold brew business. Today, we have two very special guests in addition to Brew Bomb's CEO, Ray Buerger. Ray will be guiding today's discussion as we dive into cold brew. So, starting with our very first guest, Kyle, please introduce yourself, your business, and just let us know a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Kyle Porterfield, one of the owners here of Dark Moon Coffee Roasters in Henderson, Nevada, in the Southern Nevada area, right outside of Las Vegas. So we've been open coming up on 3 years now, where we have a retail location. We roast everything on site. Have a Ace brewer, have an X45 brew bomb where we do all of our cold brew production. We're canning cold brew, kegging cold brew, a lot of wholesale accounts in the valley, stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay, great. Mason.
I'm Mason Salisbury, one of the co-owners of Luminous Coffee. Basically, we are an online coffee company in a sense, more just a weird little business that operates one day a week. We sell a lot of cans online, and we work the same as kind of Dark Moon in the sense of, canning, roasting, and a lot of merch and ceramics, stuff like that, but really focused on why we do things with certain products. And canning is, cold brew is one of those things.
Okay, great. And with that, thank you guys for introducing yourselves. Ray, maybe a little bit of an introduction for yourself, and then we can just roll right into the questioning.
Yeah, Ray Buerger, CEO of Brew Bomb. Background's been in coffee from the farm to cup. And we happened across these two guys, and Kyle makes coffee or cold brew that does stop time, and Mason here is one of the craziest, geekiest. Don't take that badly. Coffee scientists, artists I've ever seen. I mean, just unbelievable. And that's the great thing about coffee is it's science, it's art, it's marketing, it's business. And I think that's what we're going to try to talk about today is really focusing in on details that people will find useful. And thank you guys for sharing what you're doing. So let's just jump right in. The basic structure is we're going to talk about in-store operations, and then we're going to talk about takeaway, ready-to-drink products and how you do that. And then we'll get into the brewing part. We'll try to limit it to 20 minutes if we can. So let's start with in-store operations. So I know, Kyle, you're very involved in cold brew in your store there. Just very briefly, how do you brew, storage, dispense, and serve? Like, what's the process for your operation there?
Yeah, so for us, cold brew is a big seller being in such a hot climate. I mean, it's, over 89, 10 months out of the year. So cold brew is a big mover for us. So with doing cold brew, pretty much goes from everything that we do is cold chain, from the water that's going into the brew bomb, from it spraying onto the coffee grounds, in getting that concentrate. We're keeping that cold the entire process. So once that finishes, whether it's on our Ace or our X45, that's either has a purpose right away. So whether we are kegging that up for service or kegging that up to produce cans or to use it for something else at a later time, we're keeping that product cold that entire life cycle of the cold brew. I mean, it's cold brew. So yeah.
We are in a shop environment, everyone. So please excuse the background noises, but they're in an operating shop. So that's great. No problem. So you actually keep everything cold from the water going into the system all the way through the concentrate. And do you find and this is in-store operations, so you brew your concentrate, do you then dilute for daily demand, or how do you take it from the concentrate that's in a refrigerated format to what you're going to serve?
So a lot of the coffee that we will use for the Brew Bomb is coffees that will also feature on our pour over menu. So not just our blend or our lower tier coffees. We're doing stuff that is, that higher tier where we're actually selling this coffee in bags. So we can give people the experience to have a natural processed Sumatra or a crazy Ethiopia. And we're able to do that with help from the ACE brewer being able to sometimes put in a 1.5 kilo batch to make 5 gallon keg. We're able to rotate coffees as we see fit, almost go through a whole lineup, being able to showcase what we're doing. Yeah. And helps us create almost a zero waste cafe in a sense, where all of our single origin coffees there's no waste because we're able to do such a small batch or even a larger batch to where we can do, get 2 kegs out of a batch doing the ACE. So we're able to showcase a lot of coffees that you don't see on cold brew. You don't see a nice coffee being served on cold brew because not too many people want it, care about it. But when you do, we have a lot of support. We rotate 2 cold brews on tap at any given time. And every day people come in, they're asking, which one do you have today? Do you have this? When are you getting it back? So it's a cool aspect to be able to do that and showcase that and show what cold brew coffee can be, pretty much.
Cool. And so you guys are kegging. All of your in-store operations dispense out of a keg. And are you guys using a Joe tap, or what kind of dispensing system are you using?
Yeah, so we have a 8 faucet kegerator. So we will rotate. We have a nitro, a still option, and then we also have a single origin option. But we'll have a inline infuser that pretty much separates one of the kegs to go nitro, one of the kegs to go still, and then a single origin coffee that might be one of those more funky ones where it's like an anaerobic process or more funky raw cacao notes, stuff like that. So, but we'll, right as we keg it, flush it with nitrogen because that's where that oxidation can happen, and where that degrading in value or degrading in taste can come from. But so immediately flush whatever's in that keg with nitrogen, store it in the fridge. And maybe I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but not that we want to store cold brew as long as we possibly can, but we have stuff that tastes good after 6 months, 8 months,
Wow, that's amazing.
Guys, if I can interject here, we did get a question from Topeka Coffee on Instagram. They were asking for some tips on getting it to a 2 to 3 hour brew time on an X Series brewer. I know you guys primarily work with the ACE, but they were also wondering about how you can produce a higher TDS yield, they said. So maybe Ray, you can speak to that, and you guys, if you have any thoughts as well.
Well, I think Mason has far outstripped the teacher for his knowledge on brewing high concentrate coffees. So Mason, let's jump in and address that.
Yeah, so there's, like I always tell everyone, like I just told you, there's no singular answer for anything. There's just a bunch of different variables to help get you to this consistent point that you want to hit. So flavor is one thing. Well, there's a bunch of things that go there. TDS is one thing. There's a bunch of things that go. Then there's this in-between part. There is your roast profile. What coffee are you using? What density is it? Is it a Columbia soft bean? Or is it a washed? Is it a Columbia soft bean that's a natural, which is going to have a high water activities, meaning that you're going to get a higher TDS. So compare those 2 coffees, a washed and natural. One's going to get a higher TDS, one's going to get lower, meaning that you have to, for the lower one, that coffee that's going to get lower TDS, you have to change some things. So it just depends on that. But for 2 to 3 hour brew process, that's probably where we are on our X45. Actually, that's where we are on all our brews, usually about an hour and 45 minutes to 2.5 hours on any of them. But we do have a whole different system. The coffee we use, we are freezing our beans before we grind it. We are also using a Turkish spur setup. We are cold chaining it. How we roast for it doesn't distinctly change from how we, like most people, we're an omnia roaster. So I roast everything for all methods. It's one roast style. You figure out how to dial it in. So we don't do anything different. There's just a lot, and it's more knowing your setup. And I think Topeka, you guys emailed me over, so I'll definitely reach out to you guys later today. But yeah, there's a little bit more things to it than that. But a big thing is your grind and actually how you're pre-infusing it. When you're doing your math over there on say the ACE, or if you're doing your math on an Excel sheet, like say the X45 or X60, and you got to make sure you have enough water being pre-infused with it for the grounds. And then you're also breaking up clumps, because you have to look at it as the same as you would look at maybe pour over espresso, in the sense that clumps are bad. And if you mitigate those, then you're going to get a higher TDS because you're extracting through more. It's kind of like soil in the ground. It's actually exactly like soil in the ground. How the water travels through it is really important. So if you have clumps, if it's an uneven grind, if you don't know where you're supposed to be at, or if you're adding too much water, taking off, so yeah, there's a lot to it. I know there's no single answer, but
for us, it's a lot of controlling certain variables, or controlling the variables that we can, and then adjusting one thing at a time, whether it's grind size, whether it's more pre-infusion water, whether it's different coffee weight. Instead of doing a lot of things at once and then wondering what worked or didn't work, you can kind of do a process of elimination. On the ACE, we've done hundreds of profiles. Thinking we dialed it into exactly what we need, and we'll change 2 little parameters and we'll hit a higher point in our TDS or lower, and we go, well, that didn't work.
Yeah, the average TDS for a person using an ACE is probably going to be between 5.5 and 7.5, depending on where they are. And this is a generalization of how people roast, what green they're buying, and stuff like that. And then say on an X45 and an X60, most people are probably hitting a 6 to maybe a 7. But that has a lot to do with their SOP on how they're doing things, and also the coffee they're using and how they roast it and how they kind of have their procedure. Everything, like I said, we do is cold chain, so the water in contact is cold, the grinds is cold, except for after it's ground. This gets into like a room temperature instead of hot, so you're not shocking it, which there's a lot of different theories on this, but in our house and how we do things, there's a reason and a rhyme where we do it. But if we were to take this out and into how you do things, there's probably a different reason and a rhyme for why you want to do something the way you want. But it is possible to hit 12s, 13s on it. On an X, it just takes a lot, but you could average an 8 or a 9. I think there's someone in here, Coracle, they're in here, they hit high TDS too. So it's just, there's just a lot of play. You have to do one thing at a time. If you're going to change your pre-infusion on the ACE when making a profile, that's the only thing you can change. Don't change anything else, because then you won't see the effect of what's happening. And that's kind of how to get a TDS. But there's more to it.
Speaking of Coracle, though, guys, Mason, you might have just seen that they just asked the question in chat here. They just asked, should we have more or less water in the pre-infusion, and what do you consider a proper amount? Again, with the understanding that every coffee is different, or should I say, this is still them. How does more or less affect the final extraction?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and we've talked a lot about this, Tyler and I. Basically, I say you're doing an ACE Brew Bomb, and you're doing about 2.4, 2.5 kilos. Okay, that's probably the sweet spot on it. Like roasting, there's a sweet spot on it. Any more, any less, the math doesn't make sense. 1, financially, 2, in time. So I always say between 2 and 2.8 is the best spot on an ACE Brew Bomb for just time, financials, and quality. And then 4th, consistency. So, 600 mils, like 600 is a good spot to be, on a starting point. Like your goal, in my opinion, is to just really saturate it with as little as possible amount of water. So we always try to take down and put up. So, if we're starting at like 700, we'll try to get down to 4, and then change our technique of how we're agitating the coffee grounds, so to give it more air to it, fluff it up, so they're not as compact and have clumps everywhere. That does involve more time, probably an extra 15 minutes of you sitting there trying to break it up, but you will get a higher TDS probably by like 0.8 maybe 1 depending on the coffee. But less water is always better to an extent.
So if I could just dig into that a little bit. So to get a higher TDS, to brew for higher TDS is assuming that's also good for the cup quality. Less water is better than more water.
Depending on the coffee. So if it's a natural, you will need more water because it is and varietal. This is where there's a lot of answers. So say you're using a Pacamar, okay, and it's a natural Pacamar. That's a very big, soft, not dense bean. So it is going to take up more. So if you were to grind that compared to an SL28 or something like that, a washed Costa Rica or something, they're smaller, or even a Peaberry, the volume is smaller. Does that make sense? Like one is going to be a smaller volume amount of grounds, and one is going to be a lot larger. So with that natural, you may need to add a little bit more water to take up for that density and how much you're going to be putting in. While the wash, if you add too much, this is where you get clogging because these wash process certain coffees and certain varietals and certain techniques. And then depending on the age of your green, how old it is, if you're in like that 12-month mark, it is going to be a little bit drier. So it will take up moisture a lot faster. So sorry, I don't know. I like to give you all the kind of like details of what goes in because like I said, there's no one answer. You just need to know all these different variables. And once you kind of have it dialed in and you know your system within what you do, then it'll be so easy for you to be like, okay, this coffee just came in season. It'll take me 2 dial-ins and I'm done. And I'm hitting like a 9 or 11.
Yeah, I mean, very, very similar to roasting, getting a coffee that you may not have had before, but similar varietal, similar process, similar region. You're able to, even with the ACE, use the information you've done by doing batches of similar stuff to replicate that right off the bat. And 1 or 2 dial in and good to go where we want to be or where we try to be.
Okay. Hey, Mason, you also mentioned putting the coffee grounds into the cylinder in a way that you add air, that you don't compact it in any way.
Yeah, so that...
Could you address that a little bit?
Yeah, so this is as time goes and more people become accustomed, and us too, there will be more tools to make this much more accessible because these after things you do after grinding and right before it, these stages of preparation are really important. It's the same thing right now we see in coffee, the cycle of coffee for the last 10 years. Everyone's trying to mitigate the prep process and help extract more with, doing less. The finer you grind, the higher the extraction. The finer you grind, the more likely you are to get channeling. So when we prep it, we're always going as fine as possible in a sense without getting that astringency part, depending on the coffee you're doing. So basically, fluffing it up, kind of think of it as like a WDT tool. You're basically, fluffing up the grinds. If you've ever seen that, like an espresso cup preparation or such, you're just making sure you get all the clumps broken up. And it can be time consuming. There is no quick answer for it at this point. But at some point, I believe some of us will share some things we have and tools we have. But basically, you just want to break that up. You want it as fluffy as possible. You don't want to push it down. You don't want any pressure. It is because this environment of a conical shaped water flowing down on it, you don't want any kind of pressure on it or else it'll just hit there and sit on the top layer. It won't channel down. That's why you see when farmers are seeding, they'll pre-prep areas for it so the water can get all the way down. Yeah, so it's basically that's what we're trying to do is just make sure when we settle it on, you're only putting like 400 grams of coffee at a time. Each time you dose it into that vessel, 400 grams, and you're just breaking it up. And there's more to it, but it is pretty simple. If you can get that preparation down, you will get a higher TDS with better preparation.
And Mason, we did have a question here from Fizz Nitro. You might have already spoken to this, but they said, should the pre-infusion, I'm assuming, look like wet saturated sand or just damp where you can see that it's wet, but then they said, if didn't see dry, might not know. So I think they're asking about how saturated should the pre-infusion be?
Yeah, so if you can see the water kind of falling off of it and it has that moist look, you're too far. Think of it as you go to the beach and you see the water go into the tide and then it pulls off the sand and then you see it slowly dry up. It's almost like it is dry. It's just enough. It's basically like, say you're pre-blooming on a pour over or something like that, or after you take out your batch brew, and like 10 minutes later, you take out your batch brew and you see all your grinds, they're dried up. You don't want it wet. You don't want to see moisture. You don't want to see that kind of glisten off of it, because that means you're adding too much pre-infusion, which is going to take away from it cooling down, because the whole effect of the conical going down on is to slowly go over. And at some point, if you have it too wet, you're not going to get the TDS to extract off the solubles, because if your fines are uneven, you have uneven fines, some boulders, some fine, the water will just flow off of it because it is too wet. It's just like watering your plants
and clog up
too. It's just like
Yeah.
watering your plants. It's over watering can create bad things.
Yeah. Hey, if we don't mind, we got a little bit off the track because we jumped right into brewing, and we're going to come back to brewing. But Kyle, you were talking about something that I think people are really interested in, and that is shelf life. So in the shop environment, you guys brew it, and you brew it cold. You keep it in a keg. You remove the oxygen with nitrogen, and you described a 6-month shelf life for that product. That's incredible.
Yeah, so this comes down to your SOP on how you do things. For us, taking out all the oxygen and keeping it cold as possible, this also helps with bacteria growth too. But for us, shelf life is a great thing, and the whole idea of how business is. But if you're going for quality, the shelf life for us, we put what we want to sell out. Meaning, with the ACE, we can do whatever we want, but we want to get as much oxygen as possible out and put it into a cold temperature at like 45 degrees as soon as possible. Same with when we can, same with when we do anything.
Yeah, for shelf life wise, for the shop, we're not sitting on kegs for 6 months. For service, we're going through a couple kegs a week. So that's not where the shelf life becomes important. Mainly more so is with our cans. So with our ready to drink packaged goods, the more we do extend that and also keep the quality side of things too, that's the most important part, because it can last a year, but then if it doesn't taste good, there's no benefit to that. So we're able to, with our processes that we have and our SOPs in place, we're able to, keep that product cold throughout the entire process. And then even with canning, we can crack open a can from a year ago, and it would
not that we need to.
Not that we need to.
If you're not selling it, you shouldn't be.
Because then that gets into, if I have my coffee at a grocery store or something, I don't want it sitting there for a year. We want that to be, moving as quickly as possible. So it's a shift in where that quality needs to be, and then also trying to move the product. What
do you like your turnover to be? Like if you were to, and let's jump into takeaway products a little bit, because we kind of already got there. So for your takeaway products, by the way, if anybody can see this, these guys sent me just some takeaway cold brew in a little lunch box, and this is
the
one
soda?
of them. This is unbelievable.
That's the coffee soda. Yeah, that's funny.
I just picked it because I like the can, and it's incredibly refreshing and delicious. You sent me 2 6-packs, and that is something that I could see a lot of people drinking again.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun things you can do with it. And we try to really just push how we do things.
Yeah, very interesting. So maybe you can address your process from brewing to canning to I guess we're gonna brew, we're gonna store, we're gonna can, we're gonna logistics, and we're gonna sell. If you were to run through that basic process, what does it look like for you guys on your ready to drink products?
So basically, we always beforehand when we make stuff, we know it's going to move. So if we do say let's just put it into quick math real quick. So say you do 15 gallons. 15 gallons is like 150 cans. Yeah, so you're doing 150 cans. So you break that up into 24 packs. 48. So that's basically three 48 packs or
6 cases.
Yeah, 6 cases.
Yeah.
So 6 cases. So basically, our goal is to move those 6 packs, and get through it. In the shop, we're doing about 72 cans a day in the shop, And then for takeaway on tap with the kegs, we're probably doing almost 2 5-gallons every day or every other day. We're doing 2 5-gallons. So it just depends on where you're at with it. But really the goal is to, when we make something, we're already on to the next making it. And it's always to sell. We're always trying to sell it within that week. That's why we have so many options. That's why we have over, to get combined, we probably have about 13, 14 different cold brew offerings of origins. And then, for Luminous, we have some sodas and mocktails. This goes into that, that sustainable factor, the fact that we don't waste any of our roasted, because we also freeze everything too. So everything gets a point, but it's just.
Yeah. So, I mean, even from the beginning of roasting wise, we have a process or a plan for every coffee that is roasted. So whether it's sitting in a bucket for 2-3 weeks until we do brew bomb it, we know, we'll brew bomb it on this day, keg it, do what we need to do, and then can it. And right as it sells, I mean, we have some coffees that will sell out, we'll post about it and they'll sell out that weekend, and people the next week are trying to get it, stuff like that. But for us, the takeaway almost added a extra side of just the shop, because we are a retail shop, so we do serve cold brew, and it didn't take away from what we're currently serving in the shop. It didn't take away from those sales. It almost added on top of what we're currently doing, being able to offer single origin cold brews that are almost, I don't know if I'd say better, but they're higher tier. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but higher tier than what you can get at the grocery store or what you can get anywhere else, and ready to drink. So you don't have to do anything. And for us, that's a huge thing. Being in coffee, there's a lot of ways to mess up, even if you're doing a pour over at home, or for our clients and stuff like that, trying to make it an easy way to have something really good. Cold brew is perfect because you just crack open the can and drink it, or you can add whatever you want to. But for us, we know exactly how that's going to taste, how our end consumer is going to drink it, and we know it's going to be good and up to our quality control. So that's one of the most important parts for us.
Hey Ray, I'll give you a quick chance to respond to that, but then we have another question.
Yeah, let me just ask one question about that. So it sounds like you produce to order, which the ACE works great for, and so does the X, really. You can just produce and then order it. But of your product mix, so this is a coffee seltzer water or soda water thing. I mean, that is absolutely delicious. And then we have just cold brew coffee. So of the coffee products that you produce, what sells the best? Or is there any clear leader in what products are most
in the
common?
package? In package?
Yes, in the ready to drink, in the canned products.
I mean, for us, we do sell Luminous canned stuff, and it's almost a different product, because you can get a 4-pack of our cold brew in general, but then also have those coffee sodas, and it doesn't take away. But I mean, the cold brew cans are one of our biggest leaders in general.
Yeah, they're the ones that push the heaviest, like I said.
And open the doors for products like the coffee soda or different mocktails, because it builds that trust of the product that we're putting out is good. And then for us to be able to experiment with different flavors, different stuff that we don't see on the shelf at a grocery store, or even different mocktails at certain coffee shops, we're able to produce those into cans and gain the trust of all of our consumers to put out cool stuff, unique stuff, and do it on a smaller scale, but also knowing that we can produce that at a larger scale if a certain can takes off or something like that.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of like a clean sale in a sense, because the fact that most people, I would say the biggest part of the coffee industry is the problem is people don't know how to make clean sales as much of the time, meaning that, if they add a product, it takes away from another product. For us in this shop and how we do things with the experience we have, we know how to make clean sales. So when we make a product, it is to add on. It is not to take away. Our shop is really bare minimums here, along with Luminous and Darkman. We just do everything at very controlled reasoning way of doing things. So meaning if I'm going to make a mocktail, I don't want to make something that's going to take away. I want it to accentuate or sell together or be a separate add-on. It's always to do that. Because if you make a product that's just going to take away from another product, it's like when people open, coffee shops down the street from each other, they're just taking from the same market instead of growing the market. So the mocktails actually grow a new market of people that aren't accustomed to just cold brew cans or even any kind of coffee ready to drink beverages. So that's where the sodas and mocktails come in. And they're just fun to do, but the coffee cans will always be the best ones. We also, to be transparent, our green is more than the average person what they're using. We're in the like $5.80 to $10 range a pound, or $10 to about $20 a kilo coffee in our cans. So that's why they cost $5 a can. We are putting higher grade coffees in there to kind of break that stigmatism, because there's a stigmatism around the industry and outside about cold brews all tasting the same or not being good enough. So we make sure when we put certain coffees in a can, they all taste different. Because if you have a bunch of cold brew cans like the ones we gave you, and you tasted all 6, say right now blindly, you would automatically know they're each different. But most of the time in the market and how the industry is, especially the industry, is they all taste the same. People think of it as a cheap product. It's easy. It's not supposed to be a high quality. It can easily be good. It all just takes doing. So that's kind of why cold brew cans move the most for us.
And having the ability to brew on the Ace or even the X45, the margin to use more expensive coffee doesn't change much. Like the margin, our cost, even though it might be $5, $6, $7 coffee, that marginal cost per unit isn't changing much when you break it down to that 12-ounce can. But the quality of that can is higher tier than where the average thing on the grocery store shelf is, or even shops.
And speaking of canning, guys, we had Dexter Rempel, I believe is your name, sir, ask a little bit ago if you guys are using any microfiltration before canning or legging.
No, so with and one of the great things with using the Ace and the X45 is the filter process that it allows to have just such a clear product. With having that, I don't know what the micron filter is that's on what that grade is, but the coffee sits on that bed, so there's no grounds that get saturated through, but then it also uses its own coffee to filter itself, so it creates that clear product. The way certain pharmaceutical stuff is filtered or oils are filtered, it's crazy how clear it is, and we feel we don't need any.
Yeah, there's no sediment.
No sediment at all, even in our kegs. Where if we're doing the Toddy method before, there's sludge. Yeah, that big built up.
Yeah,
and now there's, nothing.
You don't have to deal with those kind of things. With that other, you have a lot of, post prep that you have to do after doing with the Toddy method. Say back in the day, you looked at a clear bottle on the retail shelf. I'm not going to say any brands, but you would see the sediment level, and you would see it on the bottom or top, depending on what brand it is. You can tell the technique they're using. They're submerging it into like big EBL tanks. And just doing it the way, everyone has done it forever. The Brew Bomb, on the other hand, we don't have these problems, so it takes a lot of post-prep out of it. You don't have to waste your time doing these quality control things because the quality control is already built into it. It's kind of the same way with, like how the roaster is. There's certain aspects of different roasters, different equipment. But yeah, we don't do any of that. Though when we get into the next canning line, there will be other stages we will add on to it. This will increase the quality even more than what it is at now. But these are, as you grow, these are different goals you set to help get the quality even more.
So are you guys doing all your own production? So you're brewing and blending and canning all in your own facility?
Yeah, we do everything. Roasting, brewing, instant, canning,
serving,
prepping, whatever you've ever seen at the biggest manufacturer to the smallest place, we do.
And we operate out of a 1,800 square foot space, so you can imagine how tight space is.
We're always changing out. We try to maximize our space so that when we get to another point, we also have a different business model than other people. That's why we're able to do the kind of things we do, but it just takes trying it out.
But then for us, having the ability to do everything in-house gives us control over everything. So if something is wrong down the line, or we notice a slight flaw, it's not calling my co-packer or calling the brewery that's doing my cans. It's looking at myself in the mirror and going, what happened? Or, going through the standard, your SOPs and figuring out what happened during that process. And that's the nice thing, being able to do everything in-house. You can see what bottlenecks there are for scaling, or what, we're able to, control all parts of the process, which is super important to us.
That's amazing. Okay, that kind of ran through all of that. We've jumped around a few of these topics, but I do want to just ask a question. So you guys sent me this variety of products. This is incredibly refreshing. I would drink that all day. I've got cold brew sitting here, but you obviously spend a lot of time and effort in marketing and packaging. I mean, there's a lot of thoughtfulness that went in there. In this package is, making a little packet of making your perfect water before you brew this coffee. I mean, I just find that stuff really enlightening and separates your brand from others. But if you guys would just briefly address, how you look at the quality of the coffee and how you look at the marketing and how you blend them for success.
Yeah, so I'll answer on that, because that's Luminous. So Luminous Dark Moon, I have to make sure transparency is put through too. So we both have different business models. We both have a little bit different demographics. He has the controlled demographic of what people come in the shop and how that demographic interacts with them. For Luminous, we don't have any kind of set boundaries, in a sense, meaning we can do whatever we want. That Dark Moon, that's a box that we did with Dark Moon. So basically, it's a collab box, and that's just we only sell that at the shop, and we only sell that online sometimes. And it's basically just a collab box, of our friendship and stuff. And we do that with certain people that we really have worked long relationships with, and they do really good stuff like us, and obviously Walmart guys. But for marketing and products, for us, for Luminous Sense, we don't really care what the cost is on things. It's all about the experience for us and what we want to do. So that can baffle some people sometimes. We know our numbers and where we need to be at to do the things that we do. But the Perfect Coffee, for instance, he sells the same thing here too, and does that. If you need to give your consumer a reason to understand why they're paying more for coffee, why they are paying more. Because if you value your business as a lower quality thing, then the whole world will always value it as that. So for us, we take a pretty starch stance on the fact that this is what we do, this is how we do it, and we will make sure at home or wherever you do with our product that it will be good. Those are really important, because then what's the point? If I tell you that coffee is blah, 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 and has all these notes, or where it's not, like you brew it like garbage, then I did a bad job in how I give you my experience. Same with the shop for Dark Moon. When we have customers come out, we sell probably in the shop, we do about 15 to 25 bags a day of Dark Moon products. We make sure they're always buying certain products to make their, coffee at home really good. Same with the cans, it all goes down to that. But marketing is extremely important for us. We may be a little different than others. We do things just because we like to do them. There is no sometimes reason and rhyme for why you get certain things, like a fortune cookie and free stickers. Like me and Lexus just was like, this is fun. I like this. I would want this. But other things like the Perfect Coffee Water, the instant packet, and then those are all to show that certain products can be really good. They just need a reason and a rhyme on why you do it. But yeah.
What about the fortune cookie?
Yeah, that literally is those are just kind of extras. That's just what we like. Like, it is what it is. The reason we do our packaging that way, the to-go takeout box, is because it is a resemblance of what anyone in the world has ever had. That packaging, good, bad, whatever it is, you can remember that packaging forever. That's why we use that and why we do it. We want to tell a story of whatever we're doing, and it's really important to us.
Yeah, I found opening the package interesting, and it was a little bit of exploration. It was like, oh, look at this. What is this? Oh, what is this? And it was an experience. It did. And the variety of different things in the box were unexpected. And I think that's a real pleasure from a consumer standpoint, having something that exceeded your expectations and surprised you. I think it was a fun experience doing that.
Yeah, and for us on that side of things, it's trying to, with Mason being more into the customer experience or all online, pushing that experience, that you had opening that box. Yeah, it's a gift in every little corner you're pulling out. For us at Dark Moon, it's matching our quality that's in the beans or quality that's in the coffee, with the packaging. Feels nice, looks nice, presentable, and then also matching that though with everything else that we do, whether it's to boil it down to our t-shirts or even our cold brew cans. They look presentable on the shelf. The labels aren't papered labels or they're shrink wrapped on. So it's matching the quality of the product to what's in, so.
Indeed, it all fits that. That is absolutely right. So, well, that's great. I think we've generally covered all of the topics that we had planned. Do we have any other questions?
As of right now, no other questions from the chat. Let's see, if anyone in the chat right now has any questions about really anything in the world of cold brew or anything specifically for Kyle or Mason, now would probably be the time to ask. So guys, yeah, let's just hang out and see if anyone has any last questions here, and then sounds like we might be wrapping up. Let's see, the Justin Chamber says the new cans felt very nice to hold as well.
Yeah, that's already blowing up the chat.
How do you have these? Where do you have these packaged? Like, how do you put these labels on here?
It's pretty. A lot of people. You'd be surprised how many texts I get a week of how to do certain things, like say packaging, for instance. We just Googled mobile canning or something like that, and we found a person that makes it. They're literally every city has a mobile canner, and they can get you your shrink wrap cans. Now, do you have the space to store them? We have a storage unit across the street, a AC controlled by 10 by 45 that we split, and we put all our cans there, and we break up those pallets. So that is something that we do outside of here and have to have storage for. But yeah, though for cold brew cans, we both will always we prefer to do labels just because of how much interchanging there is in bag lots and such. But for other ones, like that's the Dark Moon blend. That one's a staple piece, so that one never needs to be labeled. It can be shrink wrapped since we always keep it consistent year it out every year. It's always there on the shelf, consistently the same quality. That's kind of like that staple product we have at Dark Moon.
But yeah, shrink wrap cans.
Very nice. But the matte finish, it's a nice sensation just holding the can. So, well, that's great, guys. Okay, I think that wraps us up.
Hey, Ray, actually, we've gotten quite a few questions coming here. So I think, guys, why don't we... Kyle, you guys are probably laughing at some of these. Anyways, let's go through these questions. Let's keep the answers short and quick. We got a few here. First one, Broonwood, do you have your own pouching machine?
I think that person's referring to in Australia, New Zealand, and other countries. There's these machines that people like a bagging. It basically has like and they have their own, or they're like bags. They're like these little bags. We don't have that. We don't really use that just because it is hard. Aluminum is easier to recycle in the States than that kind of plastic material. And it's hard to find the compostable, biodegradable bags that also have the locking, because you need a tool on both sides. You need the one to fill it, and you need the bag to have it. So we don't do the pouching. And then I see another question: how do you ship and keep cold brew? From Dexter. For Luminous, we ship all our cans online. So we actually use single-use cold packets, and we have the insulated bags. We use these insulated bags at a higher cost. Because then you can reuse it at least, and it keeps the brand name better. But you don't have to throw it out, because if I sent you cans like most people did back in the day or still do, you just throw out all that material. It's kind of wasteful. So we'd rather just spend the extra, 50 cents to just call it a day, and you get to keep it for as long as you want. But yeah, and then from Roastmaster Mike, any of your products shelf stable, and if so, how?
Yeah, so we don't pasteurize or have any sort of pasteurization process in our cold brews, whether it's heat or pressure or anything like that.
Yeah, we don't do low temp or anything like that.
And that for us would degrade the quality into the cold brews that we're selling, and then it defeats the purpose of it being cold brew if it's sitting in your pantry on the shelf or the grocery store. Yes, it can maximize shelf life, time, and shelf life for what the question's relating to is more so non-refrigerated, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So yeah, that if you get into, we don't do that. Just the short answer, we don't do it. That's why we cold chain the entire process to be able to maximize that refrigeration shelf life of our 6 month, 8 month to a year. Cold chaining that, we're able to do that, and the way we source and roast and all that aligns.
But that has to do with bacteria and stuff like that. Like I said, our product is to be moved right away. We sell to the clients and to people that are going to drink it right away. A lot of people I think are unfamiliar with how the industry works, for how pasteurization works, how shelf stability works, how bacteria tests work, how all that stuff works, and kind of do a little bit more than what is either necessary for the business model or what. But we don't have any plans to pasteurize. Maybe the sodas down the line, we may pasteurize those or mocktails, but for now, we don't need to because of how we move it and how we want to move it. But like say for the mocktail, that is pasteurized since it has minor figures in it, and they pasteurize it. And then from Morrison, do you use it for espresso for cold drinks? That's actually a really good topic.
The ability to do so is yes, but we don't.
It's a business model sense. We've already started what we started. Now, if I was to redo a business model and do it, I would have done that for all ice lattes. I would have.
Because we can hit a 9 to 10 TDS, with the ACE, and use that pretty much where espresso is at on the TDS level, and it would. I don't know if it would taste better. It would be more consistent.
It would be a lot better. It would take a lot of that harsh astringency and harsh tactileness away from it. The problem, though, is demographic or not accustomed to it. So you would have to build a business model for that. I always tell people, once you open a shop, you can't change what you're doing, your foundation. Though, if we do open another space, we will probably try that out definitely for cold drinks, not hot. Hot drinks need that tactile experience, or else then it tastes soft. But this question from Connor actually is a good one because this kind of interlinks with espresso instead of it. How does the acidity in the Brew Bomb compare to the Toddy method? Well, this is the coolest part about it is it depends on the origin you're using. The acidity really cuts through depending on, if I have the Ecuador or the Kenya, I can have a vibrant acidity for the Ecuador, or for the Kenya, I will have a very high tart acidity. For a Colombian natural, I can have a lactic acidity, more of that milk kind of like heavy acidity, which is really cool. So,
but with the Brew Bomb, you're able to not choose what you want, not type in acidity body, but you're able to insinuate what you want to do. And that's with a lot of trial and error of what we've done on the ACE or the X45. Being able to showcase, we know what how the coffee cups on the table or how it is brewed on a pour over or espresso. And we're able to take that and kind of know what we want to how we want to showcase it in cold format. So.
You'll actually have to read the next question. My phone just dead. It's always dead. Sorry.
Alrighty, the next question looks like it's coming from Coffee Time with David. Let's see. How do you feel about taking coffee that has already been transported across the world and shipping it again after it gets roasted? Shipping costs aside, what about the environmental impact?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, there was like multiple different things in there that
Yeah. So how do you feel about taking coffee that has already been transported, say, across the world, and then shipping it again after it gets roasted? And then he's asking about the environmental impact.
This topic, I think this is one of those things. This can go any which way depending on what side of it you're on. Okay, if the goal is sustainability, then all roasters should be at origin. I should be roasting in Colombia. I should be roasting there. I should be doing that and then shipping straight to client. But this is the problem. Everyone has different duties. Everyone has different laws. Everyone has different shipping things you're allowed to ship and regulations. So I feel good that the green we buy has a higher value than the green that's at market. I know what the pickers get paid. If I buy a Columbia from, say, Coffee Net, I can go detailed and show transparency of, a farmer's percentage was this much, he paid the pickers this much. It all depends. Now, environmentally, none of it is. It doesn't make sense at all. Would I rather air ship or would I rather cargo ship? Would sea or air? Then that's another discussion. Is this coffee going to go in a container with other greens where it's going to fill a whole container, or am I going to have to ship it in on a container in someone else's, or could I have just air shipped it where it comes to me and I pay extra? In that sense, I'd rather air ship it because there's no bundle, there's no co-op. When I'm buying a green from, say, we bought, say, from Africa, like Ethiopia, I had no container to add that green to at that time. Now I could have waited and put it into someone else's, but the fact is they would just be shipping that by itself for me on my purpose by itself, and that'd be wasteful. But if I ship it by air, so I don't know. That's just an answer that all we can do at the end of the day is make sure we know why we're doing things and what is our values. For us, Luminous' value is transparency. I'll tell you how I buy it. I'll tell you how much it was. I'll tell you the percentage, and I'll tell you all that. I have nothing to hide. But sustainability and environmentally, nothing we do is. We roast on a loring, nothing in coffee. It is a product. It is something we're doing for consumers. So none of it is environmentally friendly. There is no such thing as true sustainability because we are always harvesting and wanting more, and you are wanting more, and I want more. So the only way to stop doing that is to stop buying it. So I don't know how to truly answer that without giving you like a definite fact, like just don't buy it. There is no such thing as environmentally friendly and green because there is always such a wasteful thing. Now, if you compare it to like how much you're doing over time, then yeah, there is some, but that is just a comparison. That is not the true answer. But yeah, sorry.
All good. All right, let's go to this one last question here from Fizz Nitro, and then I think we can wrap it up unless you have anything else afterwards, Ray, or you guys as well. We'll get to your shout out after that as well. So yeah, again, from Fizz Nitro here, any tricks to doing smaller batches in the ACE for testing? And if you have thoughts on that, we could probably extend that to the X45 and the X series as well.
I would say about 1.6 is as low as you want to go on an ACE. Any less, it's
6 kg.
Yeah, kilos. Sorry, we do everything in kilos and grams. I don't know your pounds. I don't know ounces. I am sorry. I do everything in ml, kilos, and grams.
Makes it easy.
It's
all
such.
along
If
the
you
way.
start getting into that, it is the right math for it. But yeah, so 1.6 is around the lowest you'll go. It's like your sample profiling if you're in a big roaster. It is your spot to start at, and from there build up to 3. Any more than 3. Your conical that spray head can't go any higher unless you take off the silver lid, and at that point it's pointless. So
when you go larger, the concentrate out or the TDS out doesn't scale up into it doesn't make sense if you go that high. But for 1.5 kilos, we're able to get a 5-gallon keg out to run that on single origin and stuff like that. And all the stuff that we test, different coffees, different recipes. Granted, the inputs going in are good. We don't waste anything. We put it on bar and run it as cold brew for service. Not that we're running bad stuff, but everything that we do can taste good or does taste good for cold brew ready to serve.
Yeah. For the X45 though, you have that stainless device you can put in there to do smaller batches. I rarely do that. If I'm going to use the X45, I am going to use it for what it is. And if I have to take time to dial it in and waste the coffee or like hit a lower number, it's not wasting. But in the sense that I'm not hitting that margin I want to hit, then I have to do that because it's the only way to. At the X45 level, don't try to scale down. You can't scale down, scale up. It's not like, say, a Lauren. You can't scale down and scale up. It doesn't work that way in cold brew realm. You have to hit those benchmarks. So for that, 12 is the lowest I will go on an X45, 12 kilos. And, output, that all depends on where you're at. But for us, if we put 15 kilos in, we're getting about 60 kilos.
60 liters.
Yeah, we're getting out, and we're hitting about a pretty good TDS. So it just depends. But I definitely, for the bigger ones, don't try to minimum. Just do what you truly need to and
test along the way. It's forgiving in the sense of when you are testing, you can still utilize for shop, cold brew, for wholesale, for all that kind of stuff. So you're able to test along the way, where with a roaster, you mess up a roast, there's not too many places you can put that coffee into.
And then there's more questions. So Johnny asks, what water recipe do you work with? So we're in about 100 to 105 TDS. It depends on our parts per million. Sorry. Depending on when the pump is pulling. When the pump is pulling, it'll be a higher. When it's not, it'll be a lower. It just depends on when it's pulling. So that's where we're at. We use a 4-stage RO system, if I'm correct. And that's a Optipeer, right? Optipeer. And basically that's what we use for our water. And we like it at 100. We could go lower. Honestly, I like going lower, but if you need to have an industry standard. So when other clients, we roast for other clients and have other hubs or wholesale, they have different water makeups. So for us, that's where perfect coffee water comes in. They're at 140, 145. We're at about 100, 105. So there's that like mid ground of us being able to dial in and roast coffees and cup them. That's where we are at.
And having the water stored cold. Not that it changes the parts per million, but that changes the cup profile a bit from standard room temp or ambient temperature. So that does change that a little bit as well.
So you guys strip your water down to with an RO system and then build it back and put it in a tank. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of good systems out there, but I definitely recommend people dialing in above what you like, because at the end of the day, your other consumers are going to be at a lower, where they can be higher. So you want to be in you want to always be able to have a mid-ground spot of where you can go. Always have a top end and a mid-ground. Don't go too low, because low is going to be better with certain roast profiles, especially with how we roast. A low TS will always be a lot beneficial, but you have to always brew, make sure it's good with that water too. And then there's another one. This is Emma. Does this refrigerated shelf life of your cold brew reach up to a year? And do you have any resources that can support the shelf life?
It's the only resource that we're currently in the
bacteria.
process of getting our cold brew tested, not only for caffeine content, but also shelf life, refrigerated shelf life testing to have a better
shelf life. Like a year. For us, we don't do that though. We know how long it can go up to, and we do about 4 to 6 months, depending on which cold brew it is. But really, like I said, and that goes back into our conversation, we are not trying to put it on the shelf for more than a year. If our product is sitting on your shelf for more than a year, we're not going to sell it again that way.
Or it shouldn't be on the shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, it's trying to move products efficiently. I mean, just like coffee bags in a sense. I mean, we are working with such a fresh agricultural product that as time goes on, quality will degrade, and that's just the name of the game. It just is what it is. So it's trying to, even though it could go a year. I mean, we've cracked stuff open and it's tasted. Quality has gone down, but
that's not a bacteria. That's not the bacteria.
No,
So we have cans. When you do a test like that, you have to save the cans. So we have cans that have been sitting out since. I have a Columbia Sierra Azul and some other ones that have been sitting out since we got the Ace Brew Bomb, before the X45. So almost a little more than a year now, and we're going to get those tested. And then we have some that are 9 months and 6 months, and that's how you do those tests. You have to do them at multiple stages. There's no they plug it in and they're like, yeah, in 1 month it'll be bad. It doesn't work that way. You have to give them the cans on those days. They test it, and then that's the staple day. So if I give them the can that was canned today, they'll test it today, and they'll say, hey, it's not it. And then, oh, great, now I know 1 day is good. It doesn't. That's not how it works.
But yeah, we are developing a shelf life study with one of the labs that we have connections with in town.
So what we're doing is we're going to do a shelf life study and a caffeine study on basically. So we're doing a wash and a natural. We're going to do a concentrate of it. So basically, we'll make a TDS of say 9. Okay, we're going to hit 9 on a wash, and we're going to hit 9 on natural, and we're going to do a caffeine study on those concentrates. Then we're going to do a study on them diluted at 1.6. and then we'll do that. And then hopefully this will give us a formula of caffeine, a caffeine formula, so we'll never need to do it again.
So it'll give us, a standardized method to assume what a caffeine is on certain
For our house stuff.
For what we do,
for
our
how we
roast,
roast and stuff like that. Because a lot of people want to generalize that kind of studies and stuff like that, but it's not how it works.
And doing stuff like that, you have to have the SOPs in place to repeat what you're doing time after time, brewing wise, the pre-production of canning, the roast, how after roast, where is that being stored? There's a lot of more variables that have to be standardized and repeated consistently to then make that shelf life valid.
Yeah, because honestly, we are in a very, if you're canning or using the cold brew, if you're serving it at house, there's not as much liability. Okay. When you put it in a canned product, you have a lot of liability. For me, I have a lot of liability. I ship online all across the world and Canada. For Kyle, he has a lot of liability too. He ships to Resort World or to some of the casino strip places. So we have to make sure we don't get anyone sick. That means we need to make sure everything, if we brew cold, everything has to be in transit cold. There can't be any of these. Bacteria grows when it grows in temperature. So if you go from cold to hot to cold to hot, that's, like Death Wish and stuff like that, and other people that have had some lawsuits and stuff. They were doing old practices, where you're using not a brew bomb, you're having more sediment, which then actually inhibits and makes more bacteria grow over time by leaving sediment in the bag. Because you're going from hot to cold to hot and having all this other tactile stuff in there. So for us, we have to make sure we have these kind of studies. So yeah, that's the shelf life answer in a very quick generalization is if you're doing this in a can, I recommend getting a shelf life because it is inevitable everyone will get sued one day. But it's better to have the studies so when that does happen, you're good because it is what it is. If you think you're never going to have it happen, then you'll never be prepared. It's always better to be prepared for things you think may never happen.
Great. I hate to cut you guys off if you were to keep going, but I think we should begin wrapping up here. That was our last question. Ray, did you have anything before we head out?
I think we covered everything, jumped around a little bit, but a lot of great content there. Guys, thank you so much for sharing. Trial and error, and you put theory to things and then you test them. It's time consuming. So for you guys to share your wealth of knowledge is much appreciated. And it's so exciting to see what you've created. I mean, you've created products and an experience and a client base and a business and a way to make a living. It's really fun for you guys to share that. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
No, I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to share more about cold brew and stuff that, we're very passionate about and trying to push. So yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Great. Now, for anyone watching right now, if they want to find either of you guys, if they want to buy something from you, come visit you in person, starting with you, Kyle, where can they find you? Your social media, website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can find us Instagram at Dark Moon Coffee. Our website is darkmoon.coffee. Makes it pretty standard. And then we're also located in Henderson, Nevada, so Southern Nevada area, right outside of Las Vegas. Easy to get to from the Strip if you're traveling in. And then also we do have our coffee and cans in a lot of the casinos around town, working on partnerships with Resort World, some of the stuff downtown, and Circa and the Plaza Hotel, and trying to get everybody to buy better coffee. So that's the end goal. So,
Hey, Mason, same question to you.
Gotcha. Yeah. So for us, we're a little different. You can find some of our products sometimes in Dark Moon, but if you want to, you can go online, loveluminous.coffee. You can sign up to become a Lumi. We don't have our stuff for sale whenever it is, like the normal traditional business model. Our stuff is only available on Fridays at 1 p.m. till Saturday at 1 p.m. And that's when you can buy our products once a week. That's the only time we sell online. If you become a Lumi, you can get it 2 hours early. So at 11 a.m. till 1 p.m., you get early access to get stuff before it's sold out, like the cans, coffee, stuff like that. But yeah, so for us, that's the only way you can do it. Or you can go on Instagram and type in Luminous Coffee, and you'll be able to kind of see what we do and kind of what we do. But basically, if you are in other states, we do have other Lumi hubs across the world that sell some of our product and help contribute to the way we do things. But yeah, that's kind of like how you'll find us.
And to try, we're about to just launch our cold brew as well online at Dark Moon on our website. So yeah, I mean, feel free, Luminous and ours, try our stuff. If you guys have the Brew Bomb equipment to almost compare and contrast. Yeah,
hands down. I'll tell you for a fact. Take off our label, put it on a blind table with other cold brews. Your cold brew blind. Do this all
Whole
blindly.
Foods.
And I promise you that, no joke, I can make anyone that says, a lot of coffee consumers and a lot of my friends in the industry, that say, coffee, cold brew is bad. It doesn't taste good. I can break that stigmatism. They still may not like cold brew, but I will bet anything that they'll be like, this tastes like what it should taste like. This tastes like something that you're describing. I think that's what the Brew Bomb kind of allows us to do is, just like when we bought the DeLorean, we have the experience to make it really good. If you don't have the experience, you have a great starting point to get there with the Brew Bomb compared to the other way. You're set up for success more than being set up with failure by using a Toddy or a Filtron or using like a Northern Brewer or any of these other techniques. You're not set up for success. Those aren't scalable. You'll never be able to grow your business like that, and it is the way it is. So I definitely recommend checking these out or checking this out to see if it's worth the hype.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you guys, and thank you to everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone in the live stream as well for watching this edition of Ask the Experts. As a reminder, clips from the live stream will be available on our social media in the coming days, and a full replay of the live stream will be added to our website as a blog and to our YouTube channel as well. So you can find links to our website and other social media by clicking the link in our Instagram bio or by going to brewbomb.com/links. So thank you all again, and we will see you during the next edition of Ask the Experts. And remember to always seek knowledge. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Serious.